Okay.
We are on air.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me today. I'm always looking forward to come to these seminars, because unfortunately, if you don't know where I live in Abu Dhabi. So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant. I know it's bad, but inshallah, I'm going to make it a habit to come here. My last seminar, I listened to Salman, which was an excellent over the streaming video, and it is a good practice. Anyway, this thing is going to keep going off, so I don't know why.
You need to call.
It just, this is my laptop, but it
You have to remove the screen saver.
yeah. Should I do that now, or?
No, keep on moving, it will not.
Okay, because I'm going to use the slide changer. Okay, anyway, my name is Osama Al-Kurdi. I'm a second year, or this is my third year. Thank you, Salman. I'm trying to be younger, or no? This is my third year in PhD, and I find it fascinating that how the years pass by very quick. So I am, if you don't know me, I am by profession, I'm a lecturer now. I moved to academia, which is I was in risk and management and safety and high risk industries, and now I'm lecturing in business continuity and an emergency management field. If you know me, I hope you like this topic. I know we sit there sometime and you don't know anything about my topic, or I don't know anything about your topic. So hopefully I'm going to give you an interesting 42 minutes. Okay, we'll start. Again, I introduce myself. My name is Osama Al-Kurdi. I'm supervised by two fine professors, Dr. Ahmed Ghunaim from Brunel University and Professor Amir Rubai from Ahliya University. The title of my thesis is investigating key determinants of knowledge sharing culture among academics in higher education institutions. So hopefully by the end of this presentation, I will be able to provide you with, if nothing, just information about knowledge sharing, knowledge management in higher education institutions. So this is the content of my presentation. We're talking. I'll take you in a small journey from introduction to literature review. This is where probably I'm going to spend a lot of the time, and then I'll take you to the research gap, conceptual framework, and then way forward and conclusion. If you have questions, go ahead and stop me. I don't mind, but I have to tell you a secret that I have to be out of here at 4 o'clock. So I will be happy to answer anything. If I don't answer anything, please email me. You should have my email. You have my WhatsApp. You have all my iPad, your pad, my pad, everything you have. So you can do that. So having an introduction is the first thing we have to do. So nowadays, knowledge is very important. And it is an essential part of any organization that would like to compete in today's market. Knowledge sharing has been recognized as a foundation of many programs. Some of them is called knowledge management. And they are the key drivers of obtaining knowledge from each other and giving out, disseminated, and even sometimes creating it. That in place, organization and higher education institutions have recognized the importance of knowledge and wanted to have a better programs to share knowledge between organizations. Now we'll talk about what knowledge is later on, but I'm just going to take you with background of the study and introduction.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Before you carry on, that's the question that I have in mind. Is there any difference between, for example, knowledge sharing within organization and within higher education institution?
Absolutely, there is no differences between the actual behavior of knowledge sharing. Knowledge sharing is the same everywhere. What's different is, and what we're trying to study is what influence academics differently than influence a worker working in a commercial organization.
But you are talking about culture.
Right.
And you look at it. Within one organization, you have a coherent culture.
Right.
where knowledge sharing will be basically disseminated very well.
Right.
But when we speak about higher education, you have a highly diversified kind of institution with lots of, let's say, cultural differences as far as, let's say, knowledge sharing is concerned.
One of the constructs and one of the determinants that I have identified as one of the key focus that I would like to focus on in higher education institutions, and it lacks the research within commercial organizations.
So if you have some impediments within the institution themselves,
Right.
how do you overcome these kind of, let's say, impediments?
And this is, I think this is left for my study, analysis, and recommendation later on. I cannot tell you that right now. It's one of the constants I'm going to use. Okay, to continue with the introduction, in order to have a good knowledge sharing, that we should, as Professor Amer talked about, have a culture of knowledge sharing. How do we institute a culture of knowledge sharing within an organization? This is the question that I'm trying to answer throughout the studies. And that definitely depends on a lot of factors. What kind of factors? In order to have a good knowledge sharing of any organization, regardless of higher education or what I call normal organization, you need to have that culture impacted by so many factors: individual factors, organizational factors, technological factors, social factors. So how these factors are impacting the knowledge sharing culture, this is what I'm going to study, and this is what I'm going to show you. Hopefully the research questions later on and the objectives of the research will help us to answer these questions. So culture is complex. The reason that we said it is why it's complex, because it involves so many external factors that we have to study: individual, organizational, and technological. What made me, or what is the motivation of this research? Today I was sitting with my dear Dr. Talal and asked me, when you said, is it a research problem or is it a motivation of the research? At this stage I'm going to call it motivation of the research. So I'll give you a small story just before we get to the motivation of the research. What started me in knowledge management was I was working in the oil and gas industry, and suddenly I got a report from Human Resources and talking about the average age of the people that going to retire in the next 7 to 10 years. And we noticed that almost 60% of my division, they're going to be retiring. So we start thinking, is how are we going to retain that knowledge of the people who's going to retire? And these people, they might have not only knowledge on books, they have knowledge within their head. So how did we do that? And this is where knowledge management started to kick in with me, and we started a complete program for this in my older work. So this is where the motivation to have a knowledge management research.
And I think there is a very important issue that you also have to think about it, whether knowledge sharing is made among individual or among institution as a group. You see, because there are human elements that enter into knowledge sharing among individuals.
Yeah.
But there are some other issues
among organizations. And that's basically, again, organizational culture play a role. And this is, hopefully, we're going to answer some of these questions later on. So,
and remember that human beings don't trust each other.
Yes.
So that's one of the...
It seems like you're going to identify all the constructs in my framework. So far, we identified culture, organizational culture, and trust. All right. So one of the biggest problems universities they face is to come up with strategies to enable academics to have to share knowledge between each other. And hopefully my research will help identify some of these strategies and recommendation for them by identifying what factors influencing the intention of academics to share knowledge or not to share knowledge sometime. So although knowledge sharing is critical, and you can say, we will see that throughout the presentation, very little research has been done on higher education institutions. Somebody could ask why. I'll help you to answer that questions later on. Why there is a little research in higher education institution when it comes to knowledge sharing. Existing research in higher education did not, if the research existed, it did not consider a lot of antecedents of, which is determinants and the key determinants, they did not consider them comprehensively. They were focusing pieces here and there, and which is normal in a research article. You cannot have everything in a research article.
It is also true you can do better research with an institution in Japan than with an institution in the Arab world.
Right, that is true. Okay, so due to the complexity of what we have in as far as investigating all these factors, when we talk about culture, this is a big domain. There is a lot of PhDs done on culture. When we talk about small factors like trust and rewards and incentives, and how the human being or the individual can be motivated and encouraged to share knowledge, you can see the complexity of the research. So hopefully my research will help identify these factors that influence knowledge sharing behavior. So what are the research questions? Number one, the first research question is, what are the determinants and antecedents of knowledge sharing factors that influence academics? So the first question is what? And the second question is how these factors are impacting the creation of knowledge sharing culture within academics in a higher education institution. So I'm trying.
For whom?
What is that?
I said, what's about for whom?
It's the what question. What are the factors? Using the literature, I need to find out what are these factors. And then how these factors are impacting, this is the how question. Okay? So this, the main objective of the research is to holistically understand the impact of knowledge sharing behavior determinants or factors on creating knowledge sharing culture among academics. The specific objectives are to investigate determinants found in the literature, of course. We're going to use the literature, and then develop an integrated framework to help us identify the factors that might influence the intention of academics to share knowledge among colleagues, and then to validate that framework using qualitative and qualitative methods, and then at the end provide some kind of recommendations to universities management in order to improve knowledge sharing culture or institute a knowledge sharing culture in the organization. Significance of the study, probably develop some kind of recommendations to the organization to help them and leverage and promote knowledge sharing. Try to increase academics' understanding maybe of the value and benefits of knowledge sharing, and then provide an integrated framework that would help universities and academic institutions try to identify what can influence and what are the factors to influence knowledge sharing among their faculty staff. So starting with the literature review, these are the boundaries of my literature review. We're going to start with knowledge sharing in commercial sector, probably in other sectors, not only the commercial sector. This is my fault here. And then before that, I think it's a good idea, before even start talking about knowledge sharing in commercial sector, we'll talk about the concepts of knowledge and knowledge. So knowledge and its management, it needs some kind of definition, and we'll talk about this later on. And some specific issues with knowledge sharing, we'll highlight them before we get to the knowledge sharing in commercial sector. The second boundary is the knowledge sharing in higher education. We'll talk about what determinants, what issues are found in the literature, and then that will take us to the research gap of the literature review. I'm hoping to reach that very clearly with you. So why knowledge is important? I think we're not going to spend that much time. We said it is the most valuable commodity between any organization. It is needed for, if you want to compete these days in this global market or global knowledge-based market, you need to have proper knowledge for the organization and the services you are using, and it needs to be shared and it needs to be managed.
I just wanted to say, is it better to say the most valuable commodity or the most valuable input? And let me explain. Because you see, if you have an organization is involved in production.
Sure.
And what is important is to have basically a knowledge factor that can contribute to the productivity of that. But when you are speaking, let's say, about
As a commodity.
as a commodity,
Right.
commodity simply means bought and sold.
Right.
which simply means it's available to everybody. So here there is a difference in terms of the use of the concept. You need to think about it. You don't need to be
Sure. Language-wise, I said yeah, but I would try to use some kind of what we call in Arabic isti'ara. Yani. This is what I try to use.
Yeah,
So anyway.
I mean, you really need to be,
Right.
you need to be careful with the use of the technical word.
Right. Okay. Taken. In order to have a proper understanding of knowledge sharing or knowledge, we need to understand what is knowledge management. And I can tell you, reading the literature throughout different areas, organizational theory, knowledge management, information systems, there is many definitions of knowledge management. And what really control or what impact the definition of knowledge management is a lot of factors, which is the context where the definition came from. But what I liked two specific definitions from the literature, which is I will share probably for you with Lauria, 2008, which is, and I tell you the rationale why I liked it. They defined knowledge, or she defined knowledge management as a series of policies and guidelines to facilitate and enable creation, sharing, and institutionalizing knowledge to achieve firms' objectives. The reason I like that definition, because it talks about two parts of knowledge management, which is the policies and the strategies, and the guidelines, the direction where we need. And it mentioned all the stages of knowledge management cycle, which is creation and sharing and institutionalizing knowledge to achieve some organization's objectives.
Yeah, so the difference between the two, the first one is an organizational.
Right.
The second one is an institution.
Right.
That's the one.
That is true. And we will have some other aspects and angles of the KM definition. I'll share it to you in a little bit of time. So what is knowledge? Again, knowledge is exactly same thing as knowledge management when we talk about different definitions, different point of view, but I'll share with you the main ones. These are the what we call the gurus of the science of knowledge management, Professor Nonaka and Takayoshi. They talked about knowledge as justified true belief. I like the second definition where we talked about, and it is more practical, when Davenport and Prosak, 1998, they talked about it's a mix. Knowledge, it's a mix of experience, values, in a contextual information. So that was really, for me, it's a very comprehensive definition of knowledge. And then we talked about framework. So this is fine, and I probably will adapted that throughout. Mrs. Odell and Garrison talked about knowledge is information in action. These are the most cited, well-cited definitions of knowledge throughout the literature. Now, what type of knowledge we're talking about here? And I think most of you know probably these type of knowledge, but I'm going to put it in context as far as the literature that they're talking about. So we have, they call it knowledge taxonomies, so different type of knowledge. Tacit knowledge, it is embedded in human beings. They call it the know-how knowledge. It is difficult to be coded. It has to do with beliefs, it has to do with values, it has to do with know-how, how you implement things, not how you learned it from books. Explicit knowledge, on the other hand, talking about things that you can code, things you can put in a book, things you can put in a procedure. These are explicit knowledge, very easy to codify. Actually, explicit knowledge, this is where IT and knowledge management professionals, they started with. They wanted to put a lot of things into explicit knowledge and disseminate it to people.
Can I say something? Now, I'm glad that you mentioned both tacit knowledge and explicit knowledge. Suppose somebody is doing research in a university about agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
You see, and I'm sure you are familiar with the Green Revolution.
Right.
Now, this man at the university, he's supposed to have lots of knowledge. All of it is explicit knowledge.
Right.
But most of the rest of the knowledge, which is the most important, is in the hand of the farmers that who lives in the field.
Which is the know-how.
The know-how.
Yeah.
Can you combine this both?
Can I combine these?
Yes.
Well, it's a question to be studied. It's to be analyzed.
Because somebody is on two extremes.
Right.
One at the university with all the knowledge in his head probably doesn't understand. But today, the most important knowledge, it's the tacit knowledge.
Right. Right, which is a hands-on, which is the know-how.
Yeah.
Actually,
But can you bring these two people together to
from
the lab? The farmer who knows nothing except what he has in his head. But it is a great knowledge for the development of agriculture in that area. And then this scientist who only have the explicit knowledge. And
So-
he doesn't have any knowledge about that.
Theory and practice.
can I tell you a little example of what you said in my previous life in the oil and gas industry? We had people call him foreman. You know, everybody know what foreman is? A foreman is a guy who does things on the ground.
Yeah.
He changed valves. And we had a guy with a PhD, sorry, I mean, I don't mean any we had a guy in a PhD in the headquarters of the office. But now the guy in the head office, exactly like what you say, maybe he will not have the know-how of doing this actually. So what we did, this part of the knowledge management program I worked with, we brought the foreman and we told him, how do you do this? Can you show us? And what we did, we videotaped him. We videotaped all his movement and we are commentating on his thing. We slowly started to build some kind of e-learning modules as part of our knowledge management system. All right? Other type of knowledge, they are out there. There is, for example, you have Heising 2009, he identified 20 other types of knowledge. We talked about individual, organizational, structure, unstructured, internal, external. So they had 29 different type of knowledge that identified in the literature. Moving on, I cannot talk about knowledge sharing without talking about the SECI model, with the SECI model, which is done by Nonaka, which talks about the conversion and creation of knowledge. How many are familiar with the SECI model? Okay, I'll probably do like 1 minute of explanation what it looks like. So what they believe, Nonaka believe that the knowledge conversion in organization, it does not happen in one square, it does not happen in one place. It has a spiral. So it goes from one place to another. What he did, he did that divided the spiral into 4 sections. We talk about, and he said knowledge or tacit knowledge can go from tacit to tacit, which is converted tacit to tacit, and that usually happen in socialization. He meant, or he referred back to socialization, most of the know-hows are done people with face-to-face. And tacit knowledge to tacit knowledge, it will never be using different kind of methods. So socializing was one of the main things to transfer or to convert tacit to tacit. For example, if you want to convert tacit to explicit, you need to do something called externalization. Mean you need to take that know-how and put it in paper, put it on some kind of research, and then send it out. So this is transferring the tacit to explicit. And then we talked about explicit to tacit. That's mean internalization. That's mean taking this back again from know-how and put it back in tacit form. Let's go back to the last one. When you have an explicit to explicit conversion, that means you are collecting. You are collecting the knowledge in images, photos, procedure, step by step, putting it all together, and then you're combining the explicit and you come up maybe with a manual with images. So this is a conversion between explicit and explicit. So the famous SECI model. Having said it is a very well cited model throughout the world, it will have some people that will criticize it. One of the major or one of the most famous criticism of Nonaka's model, that it says that it is only only tested in the Japanese environment, which is, it is the only criticism that he did not address so far in the literature. He responded to other criticism as far as the model is not tested. He responded to that. And he responded to other criticism. But with that one about the Japanese, he did not respond so far.
And this is really a very important question. And when you're doing research, I think you should think about it all the time. Because there's so much criticism now for Western model and
Right.
their application, in particular for the developing countries.
Sure.
And that's why we always speak about indigenous knowledge now. Not only the tacit and the explicit, but the indigenous knowledge has become crucial and critical. And that's why no society will ever be able to develop itself unless that development comes from within.
Sure.
And here, the knowledge of the culture, the knowledge of the environment, the knowledge of the society itself become crucial and critical. And that's why when we speak about model, then if we want to apply our models or this model to our society, we have to think in terms of incorporating. That doesn't mean that we should completely set aside or ignore these kind of models, but we have to keep in mind that we also live in a society with different culture, different tradition,
Sure.
different environment, different way of, and different knowledge even.
Right. And to be honest, this is on our shoulder.
Yeah.
We are from this region. We need to be careful, and we need to have these points implemented or integrated in our research. Okay, I promised you that I will show you different angles of knowledge KM definitions within the literature, which is I'll do. Basically, this is, I don't know if you see it very well, but there is a lot of angles where these KM definitions came from. They came from strategy, they came from information system, they came from human resources. All what I would like you to get from this slide is there is so many perspectives KM definitions came from, and that's why they have a lot of definitions for KM. Moving to knowledge sharing. So, knowledge sharing is recognized and very well cited that it is the foundation of knowledge management. Actually, knowledge sharing what started knowledge management, not the opposite in my opinion. And this is, it will be very well demonstrated in my thesis that knowledge sharing started knowledge management to start with. Given the value of how important knowledge sharing for organizations and university, which is we will be talking about higher academic institutions in a second, why would people share their knowledge? Why they would share their hard-earned knowledge with people? This is the question you see throughout all the literature trying to answer that questions. And that's why you've seen a lot of papers and articles describing, examining, investigating, like myself, investigating motivators. What motivates people to share knowledge?
Or not to share knowledge.
Or not to share knowledge, of course. and what are the enablers? What can we put in place to encourage that behavior? And what are the barriers? So these are, you see, these are the different things, the different items and constructs that people are trying to investigate.
Maybe the question should be, what is the value of knowledge when it is not shared? Does it have
Yes,
value?
absolutely. And thank you, Dr. Zamir. There is a big table about the disadvantages and advantages of sharing and not sharing. And thank you for bringing that up.
This is also part of the tacit knowledge.
Yeah.
We have a tremendous amount of knowledge, but it's not being used.
Yeah. Sometimes not using the knowledge
Yeah.
is advantage. Why? Some people will say, I'm not going to lose my power. Somebody else will come and take my job. This is one of the advantages to the human being. But what the disadvantage of not sharing? Maybe you'll not move. You're going to stay there.
No, but let's just for a minute, Sam. Now, when we speak about knowledge, we are talking about creating value.
Right.
So that's why we also have to think in terms of the impact of that knowledge at the society at large.
Right.
Otherwise, what is the use of creating knowledge without having that knowledge contributing something
Sure.
to the development of the society? I mean, there are so many vague issues in this subject that we may not be able to explain, but at least we need to identify.
That is true.
The ultimate objectives for that is that knowledge for the service of the society.
Right.
And that's what is important.
And we're not saying,
Another important question is who are parties on people at respect of sharing knowledge, the decision making, to share it or not? Or they are suffering from also, are they suffering from the conflict of interests or not?
that's
It's
absolute.
the culture of the organization. So it's an important question how to solve this.
Sure. And this is coming up. And hopefully with the next seminar, I will have the answers for you. Knowledge sharing, knowledge exchange, knowledge transfer, these are terminologies used in the literature. I just wanted to confirm with you or share with you what are the differences between these three. Knowledge sharing and knowledge exchange, it is almost used interchangeably between, even in the same article you might find these two terminologies used. It is disseminating knowledge or tacit or explicit knowledge between two parties, either individuals or groups. But knowledge transfer is a little bit different. The literature stated that knowledge transfer, it is the moving, the transferring of the knowledge across the organization. It is one way. It is not two-way communication. So this is the difference between knowledge transfer and knowledge sharing or knowledge exchange. So having said that, we are going, we're going to keep going because I have 15 minutes. Since knowledge sharing is a process and it explains individual behavior, that means that it will have a lot of factors impacting or influencing that behavior. To move on, in order to create a good or positive knowledge sharing culture, that we will have to consider a lot of a lot of factors that have focus on individual, organizational, social, and technological. Then someone will ask, if we're talking about knowledge sharing culture, what is culture to start with? And I thought I'm not going to spend time because the area of culture is huge, and I would like to really constrain myself in a little bit of definition. So according to the guru of culture studies, Hofstede, culture is the collective programming of the mind which distinguishes the members of one group. So basically, it is beliefs, values, and other facets like probably language, religion, look, that a certain group of people have in common or believe in. So this is what culture is. So what is culture in the context of knowledge sharing? What is knowledge sharing culture in that context? So knowledge sharing culture in the context of knowledge sharing, it is where sharing, working together, collaborating is the norm. So as simple as that. So how can we get our people or our faculty members or our students or our employees to share knowledge as the norm of their operations? And this is what we're studying right now, and this is why we have a lot of factors influencing that behavior, to share or not to share.
But you also have to be very careful and think, because when you do research and somebody come and read your research, let me just say one statement I was taught, you don't need to answer. They always say, for example, that in the West, religion is part of culture. And every time the culture change, religion change. But in Islam, for example, culture is part of the religion.
Right.
You see, it simply means it's not supposed to change.
Right.
Anyhow,
All right,
on.
taken. Well, this was...
Yeah.
For any organization, the knowledge management is the intellectual capital of the organization.
Sure.
Compared to other resources, other capitals,
Mm-hmm.
what is the value of this?
I did not, you mean statistically and research-wise, I did not,
Mean in action.
are you asking me to cite from the literature to you, or are you asking my personal opinion?
No, I'm saying for everything in this. So you need it also, and we need it also.
Okay, so can you rephrase your question, please?
Okay.
Or re-say your
Intellectual
question?
capital,
Mhm.
intellectual capital,
Right,
reforms or means the most important capital for any organization.
sure.
Compared to the other resources, for example, financial, so what is the value? How they consider the decision makers? How they consider this intellectual capital compared to other resources?
I'll answer you this with a statement. Measuring the value of knowledge management to senior decision makers in organizations usually cause the program to fail of knowledge management. The reason why you do not see these values on numbers in front of any decision maker, and there is a lot of research has been done to measure the value of intellectual capital or the value of knowledge management and put it in a monetary value. And I've seen some of this research, and it is very few research, but it's out there, but it's not in my scope. I did not, this is another beast by itself, measuring the value. All right, moving on. So one of my major, my research question is, what are the factors that influence the behavior of knowledge sharing among academics or among organizational employees? So these are the factors that have been cited and the papers I've read, the articles I've read. We talked about culture. We talked about trust. We talked about leadership, management and supervisor support, national culture that influence knowledge sharing among people, subcultures, team cultures, project management culture, within organization. We'll talk about the higher education very soon. Rewards, organizational culture, and structure, technology. So these are, please.
Why did you consider characteristics?
Individual characteristics. It is included, but very limited focus. And there is not that much research that I can consider valid. But yes, it is there. It is there. Individual characteristics, yes. All right. Finally, we are at the higher education institutions. A lot of literature, a lot of researchers cited that higher education institutions are in the business of creating knowledge and disseminating it. So the knowledge for universities are input and output. So that's what makes them a unique organization. Another item, which is they play a major role in creating knowledge through research, and they disseminate it through also research and teaching skills, teaching students, and they do work in partnerships with industry. Sorry, doctor?
Publication.
Of course, research output, yes, through research. This is what I meant. Through research, that's what I meant with that. Despite the importance of knowledge sharing in businesses and public sector, a lot of researchers argue that there were a few attempts for higher education to even utilize knowledge management within their organization, to utilize knowledge sharing programs within higher education. And I'm hoping that next we will try to answer these questions. So let's talk about a closer look at academics, which is faculties in higher education institutions. So academics knowledge is considered key resource and asset for the university. And there is here a dilemma. I don't want to spend much time on it because I know I have in front of me academics and future academics. This is where the dilemma I found in the literature. Is the academics knowledge owned by the individual or owned by the organization? And this is a dilemma can go on and debate can go on. In my opinion, it is a knowledge that it can be transferred to that organization, but it has to take the individual with it, with his agreement. So it's a big debate that I'm not going to go with that. Yes. Yes. Well, I need to consider these characteristics after today.
Yes.
Now, what type of knowledge academics they share? Of course, there's academic knowledge in two types, explicit and tacit. They can share teaching slides, and this is explicit. And they teach, how about knowledge delivery? How do you deliver a knowledge? It's a big tacit knowledge that when I moved to academia right now, probably in the past 8 months as a lecturer, I did not see this. There's a lot of, anyway.
No, but you have to be very careful
Yes.
with that. What I'm trying to say, for example, big universities, they usually do research in the United States for big, let's say, industries. So the industry basically finance all the
Absolutely.
research. So all the knowledge is created by those in the university
Yes.
for the sake of, let's say, helping the industry to develop.
And
that kind of
actually in the US and some maybe in Germany, the professor is hired with his skills to generate funds for research.
That's right.
So not only teaching, but I agree with you.
Yeah, and today we're talking about creativity, and
Innovation.
all these kind of things, you see, in societies that does not have any creative
Right.
kind of, contribution.
But I missed, why were you interested in ownership? Because knowledge, especially in academia, when people do research and publish, first, when they publish, knowledge is out there in the public domain. That's exactly what it's for. It's being produced so that people will.
That is true.
No,
So that it will, let me finish. Sorry, please. Just so that it will generate interaction, it will generate debate, it will generate response. So, but it's, by definition, I think academics in general, although your experience may have been that they are, I don't know where you're working. I hope it's not here.
No.
Because we don't have the isolation
Right.
experience. We talk with each other, we converse and we create, but academics should be the in a way, the least people worried about who owns the knowledge, because يعني, ethically speaking, they are not there to cash the dollars on
Sure,
their
sure.
ideas.
If they are in it for the money, they wouldn't be there.
The
Yes.
businessman, they're not like business corporations.
Sure,
or,
sure.
you know.
I think, just to correct myself, that was one of the dilemmas. Yes.
I was just
yes.
interested why.
That was one of the dilemmas I noticed in the literature. Some of 2 or 3 articles talking about the ownership of the knowledge and how we take this, because some individual, because remember, we're not talking only about research, we're talking about knowledge delivery. How do you deliver statistic knowledge? And this is a know-how. This is, you cannot put it on research paper, because you need to teach people how to do it for junior academics like me. And this is what I know. This is what I mean.
There's another thing. This is for Dr. Hassan, and there's something called intellectual property rights.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. That is the key.
Intellectual
fundamental.
property right is
Yeah.
something that's taken for granted. Yani when people do inventions, when people
Sure.
of course they patent them.
Yeah.
And it is understood that
To-
sometimes academics who work at universities, when they sign their contracts, they know that there has to
It
be
is written there.
a negotiation about who
Sure.
owns what, and generally what you produce during your time at the university is owned by the university and you together.
Sure. Well, I'm happy that I ignited some kind of dialogue. Yeah.
No.
Okay. So organizational knowledge could be the procedures, could be other. There is always some kind of tacit and explicit knowledge these academics they share between them, and then some maybe with the administration part. Operational, recruitment, hiring, and social, of course, beliefs, values, stuff, political stuff that they can share. So moving on, talking about how do they share that knowledge. That could be face to face. And it could be not only face-to-face, it could be using technology, using wireless networks. Sorry, here you go. Using technology, wireless mobiles, even through research, which is also they can share that through that medium. They can talk with industry people. They can share their knowledge with the industry. As you said, the partnership with a lot of the research are funded by the private industry. Through teaching skills, teaching, so they can disseminate that knowledge and share it with others. So this is the type of knowledge that they share. Now what the literature said, like I said, there is a few research done about knowledge sharing between academics. I found about 20 paper talking about that. So on these papers, these are the factors that they were tested or they were examined. We talk about subjective norm, talk incentives and rewards, attitude, and we'll explain what subjective norm is in the next slide. Trust, attitudes, IT acceptance, intention to share, organizational culture, technology. As you can see, and I'm trying to demonstrate the difference between the factors that other sectors are focusing on and what the higher education institutions are focusing on. And I'm trying to draw an attention to some kind of research gap between the two sectors, and where we need, this is why we need to holistically understand what are the factors that influence academics to share knowledge. As you can see, it is easy to segregate them between individual and organizational and technological factors. So we cannot continue talking about knowledge sharing without studying or reviewing knowledge sharing behavior. What kind of theories used to explain knowledge sharing among human beings. The first theory cited in the literature, which is the most well-cited theory, it's called theory of reasoned action by Fishbein and Eisen. And the main components of that theory is attitude and subjective norm. And I'll explain the theory to start with. So in order for you to do any behavior, you have to start with the intention to do it. The intention describes how willing and how you're going to engage on that behavior. So this is what Fishbein and Eisen trying to relate to us. And what is the intention? The intention is a function. It is described, it is controlled by two major constructs, which is attitude and subjective norm. So what is attitude toward that behavior? I'll give you an example. Going to the gym. What was your attitude, or what the attitude could be to go to the gym? Is the gym good for me? Would it help me? Would I be happy about going to the gym? So these are the attitude that you might feel about that certain behavior. And that's why it is important to determine, are you going to actually do that behavior? Are you going to at the end go to the gym or not? That will control it. Now, what is subjective norm? Or they have the opinion of others. Subjective norm is described as what is your people around you, your close circle, think of that behavior. Are you going to get support from them to do the behavior? Are they going to be, oh, you're going to the gym? Your wife is going to go, aha, go. I want you to have a good body. You should go. So your children, your friends. So this is what the theory of reason action explain, or try to explain a human behavior. And
Your friend could say only fools go to.
only fools go to the gym? Okay. Well, I don't know. Then my wife and my kids, they will allow me, they will encourage me to go to the gym. All right. So what other theories out there to and theory of reason action is used in a lot of domains, not only for knowledge management or knowledge sharing. It is applied in information systems and applied in sociology and psychology. A lot of health research, they use TRA or theory of reason action. The second theory, it's called theory of planned behavior. And this is an extension, basically an extension of Fishbein and Eisen. This is created by Eisen. And they added, or he added, one more component on construct. It's called perceived behavior control. What does that mean? What are the facilities, or what are the environment that will allow you or enable you to do it? For example, if you want to go to the gym, would you walk, or you need a bicycle to go to the gym? So it's something that outside of the control of the people and the attitude. So something about the environment around you. Would you have the equipment to do it? For example, in technology, would you have the technology to do something? So they added something called BBC, which is perceived behavior control, as an extra component. Other theories, I'm not going to spend time on this because I'm definitely running out of time. I'm not going to spend time on that. Social capital theory, self-determination theory, and social exchange theory are theories used to explain and predict human behavior. I'm just going to highlight one point. Social capital concept drawn above the basics of a human that interact with exchange, which is an old thing. Give me something, I'll give you something. So if you want to share your knowledge, give me something and back for that. So this is what the social exchange theory based on. Having said that, that would bring me the research gap that I found in the literature. There is a definitely lack of research knowledge sharing in higher education context, lack of holistic examination of knowledge sharing and determinants in higher education, and lack of knowledge sharing study cross-cultural. And I hope Professor Amr he likes me now. There is lack of that in cross-cultural countries or cross-cultures where we need to find out more about this topic. That leads me to the conceptual framework. I have adopted.
It depends what you did.
Adopted. I have adapted. I have adapted. That is correct, because I was trying to have an integrated model where I can identify the factors that were not identified in the organizational and commercial sector, and I tried to add it. So my main theory is TBB, which is theory of planned behavior, and these are well-established constructs, and even hopefully I will borrow some of the surveys, or I'll save that to later. And these are the individual, organizational, and technological factors that I believe at this stage from the literature that they would influence knowledge sharing culture or knowledge sharing among academics in higher education institutions. With that, I came up with 16. I know there is 15 here. This is a mistake of mine. There is a 16 hypothesis constructed from the framework. I know I just received some advice that I should be working backward, which is giving the hypothesis first and try to come up with the framework at the end, which is something I received with pleasure. That would conclude my, actually no, contribution of the study. Actually, I'll save that for later, because this should not be here, because we didn't do the study yet. Way forward. The next thing for me, hopefully, is to modify whatever I just saw you to respond to the comments I got, and then go with the research, start with my research methodology, instruments preparation or development, and then start my data collection. I'm hoping within the next 3 months from now. That will conclude my presentation. I hope I didn't take much of your time. I'm happy to answer probably 1 or 2 questions because I have to really run out of that door to catch the airplane at 6 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You can still leave a proper task.
Oh,
So you got about 10 minutes.
okay. Do I have 10 minutes?
The small place on the airport is small, everything is small.
As long as if I don't go, I'll come back to you, sleep in your house.
That's fine. You can sleep here. So
No.
But we
Yeah.
want one nice.
Please.
Okay, now we'll for some questions. People want to ask some questions. Any questions?
We came up with 15 hypotheses with an E, as in plural.
Yeah.
But it goes to I.
It's sorry. Okay.
No, but I mean, what is your major, just try to simplify it for us. Yeah, you tell us in one or two sentences what you think you are looking for. And what do you hope to find out?
Mainly,
Yeah.
I really would like to see how cultural factors would impact, or what is the impact of cultural things, especially organizational culture, individual culture, national culture, and team culture. Because we're talking about higher education institutions, and it is this is the real thing I would like to find out. How is this impacting creating a good culture of knowledge sharing in academics, in academic institutions?
Let's say it's an old plan. So what
They still say it's new. It's only 20 years old.
how many years?
20.
20 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Academic research. So what will we add to our culture for example, our countries? What will you add new that we can benefit from?
As you noticed that when we talked about the differences between research in organization or commercial or public sector and higher education, there were very few research in the issue of culture, trust, and other factors that they weren't researched. So would we be safely comfortable to say that academics, they don't trust each other? That's why they don't share knowledge between them? Can we answer that question? We cannot answer it. We don't know. There is not that much research. There is not much research on that. There is about 15 journals of knowledge management. Why? If we say there is an old topic, so why do we have 15 journals of knowledge management? So what I'm trying to say, this research is evolving, and e-government is coming up, e-citizen is coming up, and if we say that knowledge economy is going to control, and we're looking for knowledge society, so how are we going to have knowledge sharing between society, and how we need to understand why would they share, why would they wouldn't share? So I hope that answered your question.
How is it possible, for example, even if you come to a conclusion by identifying some of the issues that related to the culture or institution, to have these kind of, let's say, result that you are coming with to be implemented in societies like the Arab world?
Right.
You see, I mean, when it comes to culture, we are supposed to have the unified kind of, or a common factor. You see, when you speak about the Arab world vis-a-vis the rest of the world, then you can find lots of differences in terms of cultural, linguistic, and whatever. But here we can say we are lucky that our culture is very close. I mean, what is the difference between the culture of Bahrain or Qatar or United Arab Emirates and what have you? You see, these are, things that will work for our own advantage.
Right.
And I'm sure, even today, we have so many solutions to so many of these problems, but it's never been implemented.
Right.
Not because we don't know the, let's say, problems. We understand all these kind. There are some other factors that may not necessarily allow us even to do these kind of.
That is true, but
There
then
are some internal, there are some also
I can ask
external.
then I can ask this question in a different way.
Yeah.
Should we stop researching.
No, we don't need.
If it is not, if we cannot apply the results, if we
Not that
cannot,
we are spending lots of money to do research.
Right.
Then what is the purpose of spending this money if we cannot implement? And as I just said before, that this whole research is supposed to add value to
Sure.
our society.
sure,
Just like when we speak about innovation. What is innovation?
Right.
Innovation is commercialization of ideas.
sure.
That's exactly what we are doing.
So I'm hoping I'm not going to give up on the society, which is the Arab society. I would like the Arab society or the Arab countries to be like Malaysia for one day, in my opinion, because I can see other countries, they have similar environment like we have, similar political scheme, similar ethnicity or different sectors or sects, but they still can implement, and I hope.
Are you talking about developing countries per se, or are you talking about the whole world?
So far, I did not mention any country.
Okay,
I am.
because that's the point. You're
Right.
gonna encounter problems.
Yeah.
I think I can raise a few red flags.
Go ahead.
Because it is different in different parts of the world.
Sure.
And the culture of education in different parts.
And
of
this
the
is
world
where I'm
very different.
this is where I'm hoping to
Many
capture
people
this.
In American universities or European universities who share a lot of knowledge. Number one, the first problem you're going to encounter is how do people in certain regions define knowledge?
Right.
Because in the Arab world so far, for example, in our part of the world, we look at the Gulf. We don't even teach the humanities in our universities. We don't give degrees in the social sciences, in psychology, in sociology, in political science. And if there's a dearth, it's so little.
Right.
Course here and there just to say we have electives and etc. We are so focused on the hard sciences or business and IT, right? So, understanding of what
And now,
yeah.
this is what I teach.
Okay, so our understanding of what knowledge is flawed. In the world,
Sure.
we're not established on the hard sciences only, or and there
Absolutely.
was no IT, and there was nothing called business as a discipline even. They all thrived on philosophy,
Arts,
sciences,
yeah.
and the arts.
Yeah.
They established themselves on the
Oh, it's off. This is off.
they established themselves on the basis of the human sciences. That's how it all started.
Right.
Didn't it start with philosophy? And then it started branching out. And actually, science itself is multicultural because the most wonderful scientific discoveries were not made because people were sitting there saying, I am a pure person who's looking for truth. No, there were political and social and other reasons that spurred scientific discoveries in the world.
Sure.
The British Empire sent a lot of people to do all kinds of things all over the world for economic and political reasons.
Sure.
And those generated some discoveries. And so I'm not putting obstacles in your way. I'm just saying be careful how you plan it, because you have to be clear about do you believe that knowledge sharing is not taking place between academics in the whole world?
No, I would like to know what factors it influenced them to share their knowledge.
You are inquiring into what is it
Exactly,
that
and
is
how.
motivating.
Absolutely,
And,
absolutely,
yeah.
Dr. Sami.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that you addressed this issue, or you
And
asked this
I'm
question.
sorry, I had a meeting, I came late.
No,
I
no.
apologize. No, I apologize because I may have missed something important.
Sure.
you said
No,
at the
it's okay.
beginning.
The reason I left it a little bit open, and I didn't talk about any context either, or Middle East or GCC or whatever, because I really would like to know that what other faculties in US, Canada, Bahrain, Malaysia, they share. This is why I'm leaving that methodology or that data collection a little bit open to compare probably at the end to see where do they feel. Please.
I mean, no, just to highlight on Dr. Samia's point, I think whatever she said is really crucial. Like, it is mainly for your part, which is the organizational factors, I
Right.
believe. Now, if you will link it to the individual factors, it's another thing.
Sure.
But from the same, I mean, I agree to her with regard to the, definition, like, because especially when you're talking, when you will test your, or when you will conduct your survey,
Yeah.
you will have a lot of academicians that they are coming from a multi-diverse background.
Sure. And this is the purpose.
Yes. So now it depends. Now there is an influential crucial factor of the organizational itself, that they are delivering their knowledge sharing. And then there's another factor, which is the individual factor.
I am absolutely planning to have
Yes.
organizational and
Yes.
individual
Yes.
constructs, questions to cover that individual,
Yeah.
between individual, organization, technological, and I will have different questions in the survey covering these things. Demographics, where are you?
Exactly.
And I have to know that because, and this is gonna help me in the data analysis and come up with some kind of the hypothesis to work, and maybe it will work in Canadian-based
Yeah.
academics, and it will not work in Malaysia. And these factors, the one I said, they did not enjoy a lot of agreement throughout.
Yeah.
If you
They
have
thought they
a-
are significant, but they could be positive or negative.
If you have a 6 o'clock flight.
Yes.
you miss your flight now. You
But
better,
Just
Thank
gonna finalize
Yeah.
here.
it's a
Thank you,
fascinating.
Osama.
it's
Thank
very
you.
interesting.
Yeah,
Thank
something
you.
Very good
I
talk.
recommend that I'd like to just you then finish while you're preparing.
Okay.
yourself to-
I can listen to you, okay?
The issue I'm having is your presentation that you spoke for 45 minutes.
Yes.
30 minutes out of the 45 minutes, you're giving us a lecture about knowledge management, where we can actually go and find on the internet
Okay.
or from books.
Sure.
That of no use whatsoever. It's only started to become interesting in the last 15 minutes when you actually started to tell us what you want to do.
Okay.
Because here we are interested on what you want to do, not the general definitions.
Okay.
Because although you spend so much time collecting information about knowledge and knowledge management and knowledge sharing, and you spend half an hour, I don't remember anything of that.
Okay.
What I remember is that now, in the 15 minutes, is what you want to do. The missing element, and I think that's why all these questions are coming to you, that out of this literature review, you did not really clarify very clearly the specific gap and how you generated the gap from the literature. You have put 3 gaps at the end of your big literature review, which I think is probably literature narration rather than literature review. Maybe in the thesis you probably have some critical critique of it, but here was a literature narration followed by a slide of 3 lack of this, lack of that, and then you went into constructs what you want to do. So the fact that there is lack of clear problem definition, a graduated problem definition, a lot of people are asking why you want to do this, why you want to do that, have you thought of that, do you want to do it regionally, internationally, globally, have you thought of individual organizations? So all of these is because you need to go back and then look at your projection of your work and see this is the gap I'm focusing on, and based on my focus on this gap, then I am going to do this. So we are missing now here, the missing link, I can just finalize with one sentence, is a clear.
When we talk, just to clarify things, so I can, this is going to be benefit for me. You mean the structure of the presentation? It is not really, did not clarify the research gap, or where I want to take you from the literature review to the, it was more descriptive.
Yeah.
Is that what you're trying? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because you could have just skipped certain aspects. You could
That
have-
Right.
1 hour could have been done in 3 minutes.
Sure.
3 minutes.
Okay.
Instead of going from the details to the larger, you should have started with your problem
Right.
and the gap immediately,
And this is, I think,
and then go
And-
tell us how are you going.
unfortunately, I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you why this has happened. Because I usually do not get, sorry, Dr. Talal, I do not get guidance on the templates or on the way that these presentations and seminars are being conducted. And this is a big problem. I asked Hissa, I said, can you share with me some of the best practice when it comes to constructing these kind of presentations? I'm not, even Salman, I was supposed to call Salman probably to get his presentation. The reason why I need someone who did it before, because this is the way that you guys do things around here. And this is, and I'm not saying it's an excuse, it's my fault. I should have done this in a better way, and now at least I understand, which I have no problem with
Obviously,
feedback.
This is your first presentation.
Yes.
So if you do it perfectly,
Then no need for.
There's no need for this.
That is true.
No, I'm sure you
I
do a
mean,
very
we
good
always
job.
give these comments,
Sure.
not to tell you that you're wrong, but to tell you
No.
you are wrong, but you need to improve it.
Yes, and
And that's the whole idea.
but
If you come to me and you do a fantastic presentation,
Then no need
for
for-
tomorrow, and then you get it. So there's no need. I mean, it's fine. You have the right to say that I haven't got any guidance or something, but really that's not
Sure.
the case.
That's fine. But I really think as a best practice, if you really can you guys share with us this presentation
Yeah.
on, I mean, send it to us. When people send,
Yeah, it should
online.
be
yeah,
possible.
well, yeah, the last time, which is